If you're given a parabola with the vertex at the origin, 0, 0, and the focus at 0, 4, and they say, find the standard form equation of this parabola, please just graph it. If you make a sketch of this, you'll see that we are at 0, 0, and up 1, 2, 3, 4. So there's our focus. Immediately, I know that P is 4. That's the directed distance from vertex to focus. So my curve is the curve of the parabola is going to rally around that focus. And if this distance is 4, if I double that and I go 8 this way and 8 this way, I'll have 2 additional points, over 8 up 4 and negative 8 up 4. So now I've got 3 points on my parabola. I can draw a nice graph of that. I know my HK is 0, 0. So because it opens up and down, I know it's x minus h squared equals 4p times y minus k. So this will be x minus 0 squared equals 4 times y minus 0, which will give us x squared equals 16y. And there will be our standard form of the equation of this parabola. If I'm given an equation like this and asked to put it in standard form of a parabola, the first thing I want to do is try to complete the square. Notice, if I'm going to complete the square, my coefficient of my quadratic term must be 1. It's negative 1/2. So I quickly say, well, if I multiply both sides of this equation by negative 2, then my coefficient of the x squared term will become 1. And I'll have negative 2y is equal to x squared plus 2x minus 1. Plus, minus. If I'm going to complete the square, I want to jettison this to the other side. But look at what we have here before we even do that. We have x squared plus 2x plus 2y minus 1 equals 0. That's meeting the expectation of any conic, ax squared plus bxy plus cy squared plus dx plus ey plus f equals 0, where I have 1 for a and I have 0 for b, because I don't have an xy term. Notice this is critical to see that we have a 0 for c as well, because I don't have a y squared term. A and C are critical for us. If A times C is equal to 0, then I know I have a parabola, because either the x squared term is missing or the y squared term is missing. And the only conic section that we have that has 1x squared and the y to the first, or y squared and x to the first, is a parabola. So if one of them is not present, that means one of them is 0. And a times c is going to give us 0. Remember, for the circle, it was if a was equal to c. Now, a quick test is, if a times c is 0, I know I have a parabola. So if I'm looking here and I want to complete the square, what I'll do is I'll add 1 to both sides. I want to get the constant away. Negative 2y plus 1 equals x squared plus 2x. Now, because my coefficient of x is 1, I'm ready to complete the square. Plus, the coefficient of x is 2. I'm going to go 2 over 2 squared, and I'm going to add 2 over 2 squared to this side. Whatever I do to the left, I must do to the right. So I get negative 2y plus 2 equals x plus 1. I know if that's a 1, then I've completed the square correctly. I want, if I'm going to put this in the x minus h squared equals 4p times y minus k form, I want the coefficient of y on the inside of the parentheses to be 1 as well. So what can I factor out of there to make that happen? A negative 2. Leaves me with y minus 1. Let's see, negative 2, yep, negative 2, yep, is equal to x plus 1 squared. So I could write this, if I flip it around, x plus 1 squared equals negative 2 times y minus 1. Notice our x is squared and our y is the first. It opens up or down. Our 4p is equal to negative 2. So p is equal to negative 2 over 4, or negative 1/2. if I want to see what this looks like, I must graph it. Our HK is, if I use my little trick, x minus 1 equals 0, x equals negative 1, y minus 1 equals 0, y equals 1. So if I'm graphing a sketch of this, I'm going to be at negative 1, 1. There is my HK at negative 1, 1. And my P is negative 1/2. If I go down 1/2, I can say my focus is at, well, if I go down 1/2 from there, I'm at negative 1, 1/2. If P is absolute value 1/2, if I double it, I get 1. So I go right to P and left to P, gives me these points 0, 1/2, and negative 2, 1/2. And I can draw my parabola like this. Of course, I could use x equals the quadratic formula here and say that this one here would be negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. I just wanted to remind you that quadratic formula is used for finding x-intercepts. And if I went down 1/2 to my focus, I'm going to go up 1/2 to my directrix to give me y equals 1.5 or 3 over 2 for my directrix. Notice y equals is a horizontal line.